So I'm looking forward to sharing this series with you and sharing ideas about transformation. And I realize in this series that I'll be sharing a lot more with you personally. Some of you have heard some of these bits and pieces of my life story over the years. Some of you have not heard any of it, and none of you have heard it quite the way I'll be sharing it in this series. Unity has been the most transformative experience in my life, and something I continue to be eternally grateful for. Its teachings have molded and shaped the way I approach things, the way I think about things, and hopefully the choices that I make in my life. And so today I want to talk to you about, as we begin this series on transformation, about the detours that Spirit or God, use whatever word you prefer, that Spirit or God uses to help us get on track. The detours, that Spirit that God uses to help us get on track. In this series, I'm going to be talking to you for 6 weeks about different aspects of transformation. Today will be the aspect of detours, but I'll be talking to you about the vision that God uses to get us started, the pain that God uses or Spirit uses to wake us up, the people that God, Spirit uses to move us along, the timing that God's Spirit uses to teach us about ourselves, and the challenges that God uses to build our faith. And in each of these, what I come to appreciate and realize is that it is how we meet these things, how we meet the pain, how we meet the timing, how we meet the challenges, how we meet the detours, how we meet life that makes all the difference in the world. And what I feel confident in saying to you is that within our teachings and practices and technologies of unity are the tools that you can use to be able to meet any of the things that are happening in your life in a very effective way that will not only grow you, but will absolutely improve the quality of your life and living. So this idea of transformation is a pretty big idea. Transformation is about those sudden life changes or experiences that happen to us. It's about the decision to grow, to be different. And yet, it takes more than just having the idea of something new that we want to bring forth. We have to be ready for it, and we have to be willing to have the courage to take those steps. We have to be dissatisfied enough with the way things are that we'll do the hard inner work to make things different. Is that not true? We have to be dissatisfied enough with the way that things are and believe that the reward to change, to transform, is great enough that it's worth the effort and the hard work. Would you not agree that that's true? Right. Most of us don't do a whole lot of changing all on our own. It usually takes something happening in our life to kind of put us in the path of making a change, of making and transforming our lives. So detours, think about them for a moment. We've all experienced them, right? Think about the last physical detour that you've experienced. What are kind of the feelings that come up when we're trying to get from point A to point B and there's a detour? I was thinking about the detours that I've experienced recently, the physical detours. Sometimes with a detour, we feel powerless because the choice wasn't ours, right? All of a sudden, we come to a certain part of the road, and there's a sign that says detour. We didn't choose that. We may feel powerless when we see that detour sign. We might feel frustrated, right? Frustrated because we're taken off track. We're not going to be able to get from point A to point B in exactly the way that we had thought we were going to. We might be worried. Why? Worried because we might not get there on time. We may be late, and we may be late for something really important, so we might feel worried. We might feel confused. We might feel confused because the detour might not be marked really easily or might have a lot of twists and turns. I'm thinking of one that we've been encountering in this season in our trips up to the Mammoth area. There are some detours on 395 that you really have to pay attention to. They're a little bit gnarly trying to navigate those. They can be very confusing because it's hard to see some of the path ahead, except for only the first few feet in front of you. Or we might feel anxious because the road that we're being put on might not feel as safe to us. Now think about the figurative detours in your life. Would you not say that some of those same feelings can come up when we're dealing with detours in our life from experiences, right? From things that happen suddenly, a sudden change in our career path, a sudden change in our relationship or our lifestyle circumstances, something that we hadn't anticipated, can bring up all sorts of feelings, right? We can feel anxious. We can feel confused, we can feel worried, we can feel frightened, we can feel angry, upset, all different feelings because the detour is taking us off track, or so it seems. The detour is not what we had planned, and we're having to adjust to the change that detour is representing in our life experience. And that can be difficult. It can be something that we resist, that we don't want to have to deal with. One of the most significant detours in my life is how I got to be here, how I got to be in unity. It was not at all part of my plan. Furthest thing from my mind. But my detour of getting here into unity and eventually into the ministry was a many-step detour process, a constant back and forth, a zigging and a zagging. My plan was to go to college. My plan in graduating high school was to go to UCSD. The detour happened when my ice skating coach, skating was my love. I skated for a lot of years. When my ice skating coach said to me, "Oh, you don't want to go off to college. Why don't you go into one of the ice shows?" And I said to him, "There's no way. I'm not good enough to get into an ice show. I'm going off to college." And he made a bet with me. He said, "Well, would you at least let me arrange an audition for you? And will you promise me you'll do your very best at the audition? And if they offer you a contract, will you at least consider it?" Well, I was convinced that my coach was out of his mind. So I had nothing to lose by saying to him, "Okay, go ahead, arrange an audition." And this was back in the days when the companies would fly their executives out to the local skating rinks, excuse me, and they would audition anyone that the coach had thought had merit. And so one of the execs from Ice Capades flew down, I think, from San Francisco, watched me skate, and offered me a contract. I was 17 years old. Can you sign a contract when you're 17? No, my parents had to sign the contract for me. I was so angry at that coach because I was so convinced that there was no way that they were going to be interested in me. It was only for a chorus line position, but I didn't even think I was good enough for that. I had a plan, and my plan did not include skating with the Ice Capades. And so it was this process, as I can vividly remember talking to my parents, and I'm very grateful for the way that they approached all of it with me. They told me, "What will you regret more? 10, 15 years from now, will you regret more looking back and not having even given it a try?" Because you can always change your mind. "But if you never even give it a try, will you regret?" Well, my answer was, yes, I would regret. So they had to sign the papers with me. In fact, I still have that contract. I pulled it out a couple of weeks ago. I have a little personal folder in my office, and by gosh, I still have that piece of paper and, all of a 17-year-old signature with her parent signature to go off to skating. They flew me to Duluth, Minnesota. The skating rink was like downtown area. No transportation provided, so I had to walk from this little hotel to the ice skating rink in my skating costume during morning drive time. I now understood what it meant to be honked at. It was embarrassing. Anyway, went for the rehearsals for the show and so forth, and realized very, very quickly I hated it. I remember them dressing me up in a costume, putting like 3 layers of eyelashes on me, putting a 35-pound headpiece on. The showgirls would wear these great big headpieces. The most scantily clothed outfit I had ever put on. I thought my father would kill me if he saw me in this. I'm not going out on the ice looking like this. And within a few days, I knew it was a mistake. It was an absolute mistake. And when I came home, and this is the detour, all of these are pieces of the detour. When I came home, I felt so ashamed. Have you ever done something where you felt ashamed or embarrassed? I felt so ashamed, so embarrassed. I felt so lost. I had this plan that I was going to go to UCSD. And now I was home, and it was too late to go to college, at least for that year. I felt embarrassed. The last thing I wanted to do was put skates on and go out and have fun. Can you relate to just where you feel like, oh my gosh, I really messed up here. I really messed up here. And I didn't have unity at the time. So I decided that, well, I better do something with myself while I figure out what the big thing is I'm going to be doing. And so I got a job. And I had taken typing and shorthand in high school. Those were the 2 things I learned that were the most practical skills. I am a darn fast typist, and I can still do Greg's shorthand. Anyway, I got myself a job. By then, I might have turned 18. I got myself a job working as the stenographer for the City of El Cajon's Planning Commission. And I would sit in the meetings, hour-long public meetings, taking the minutes in shorthand. This is before they had those little machines. It's before they had those little machines. So taking it all in shorthand. Side note here, God has a sense of humor, a really big sense of humor. I was raised Lutheran. As soon as I was confirmed, stopped going to church, didn't want anything to do with God, religion, or church. God's sense of humor. I'm working now at the City of El Cajon, all of like 18 years old, in the planning department, taking the planning commission meetings. And our breaks, I would go outside and sit at the corner of the building. This was the old City of El Cajon buildings. And I would look across the street, catty corner, at this most adorable, white, old-fashioned looking church. Christ Church Unity of El Cajon. Never heard of Unity. I remember sitting there thinking, looking at that place, that is so cute. If I ever were to go to church again, I might go into a place like that, but I'm not ever going to go to church again, so forget the thought. Does God have a sense of humor? The major detour, so the detour was Ice Capades, but then the detour was having fallen in love with somebody who worked for the city, who after a few dates, he told me, well, I'm still kind of married. That kind of married really bothered me an awful lot. Broken heart. Didn't relate to the person anymore, though I had to still see him at work. And that was my introduction to unity. My introduction to unity was being invited to go to a unity church, being invited by my grandmother, because my heart was broken and I was hurting. I have such compassion and empathy for anybody who comes into our community for the first time. My suspicion, I'm not always right, but my suspicion is most people who come into unity are coming looking for something. They're coming looking for some healing. It could be emotional, physical, or mental healing, or they're coming looking for some insights. They're coming looking to feel better about themselves or to try to make sense of their life or to get some answers. And they find we're not usually the first place they come, but they come and they come looking. They come usually a little bit cautious, usually a little bit hesitant, but they're coming looking for something. And so was I. I was looking for, how do I make sense of this? What am I supposed to do at this very young age of my life? My friends have gone off to college. I'm still dealing with feeling like I'm a failure, like I'm ashamed, like I made really bad choices. What am I to do and how am I to handle this phase in my life at such a young age? And sitting just like you sit here, I would sit and I would listen. And I swear to you that I thought my minister must be following me around every week, because it was like every single Sunday, Reverend Robert Stevens, some of you recognize that name, he passed many years ago, would say something that I thought, this is getting spooky. It's like, how does he know what it is that I'm struggling with? Am I the only person in this room that he's talking to? I felt naked at times, that how does he know? And yet, I don't think there was ever a Sunday that I left without hearing something that I could use. And piece by piece by piece, things started to make more sense. An idea of maybe where I should be going in my life, and that's for next week's lesson, started to emerge. But the answers were inside, but they only came out as a result of being in an environment that helped to nurture me, being in an environment that helped to lift me up, that helped to provide answers for me. I had to do the work, but at least I was being given some tools. Does that make sense? And I was given a safe place to question. I was given a safe place to try things on for size, to question, and then to make real for myself the things that really did make sense to me. If it were not for those detours, had I gone straight into college, I don't think I would be doing this work. I'm sure I would have found something that would have been meaningful, but I think this is perfectly suited and has been ideally suited for who I am and what I have to offer and give. It was a major detour. I had no intention of ever stepping back into a church. They didn't make sense to me. I didn't have any really bad experiences, and I know that some people have had very traumatic and abusive experiences in their religion of origin. That wasn't the case for me, but it didn't feel like it made sense. It didn't seem practical to me. It seemed very judgmental to me and very exclusive to me. And so I had no reason to ever entertain the thought of coming into a church. Had I not gone into Ice Capades, I would have gone into college. Having gone into Ice Capades, had I not quit and come back and had to get a job and fallen in love with somebody that was not available, I probably would not have had such a broken heart, that I would have been seeking for something that could help me make sense of it and help me heal from it. I have always appreciated, from the first time I heard this poem written by Martha Smock, she was the editor for Daily Word, Unity's inspirational magazine for almost over 100 years now, describes to me so much the detours in my life. I want to share it with you. Some of you are familiar with it, but it really fits, I think, to describe the pattern of our lives. The name of it is No Other Way. She writes, could we but see the pattern of our days, we should discern how devious were the ways by which we came to this, the present time, this place in life. And we should see the climb our soul has made up through the years. We should forget the hurts, the wanderings, the fears, the wastelands of our life, and know that we could come no other way or grow into our good without these steps our feet found hard to take, our faith found hard to meet. The road of life winds on, and we like travelers go from turn to turn until we come to know the truth, that life is endless and that we forever are inhabitants of all eternity. We should see the climb our soul has made up through the years. We should forget the hurts, the wanderings, the fears, the wastelands of our lives, and know, and really know, that we could come no other way or grow into our good without these steps our feet found hard to take, our faith found hard to meet. That's, to me, the most beautiful way of meeting the detours in our lives, of recognizing that those steps that have been hard for us to take are very much a part of the journey, perhaps the most important part of the journey, if we meet them well, if we meet them with an open mind and an open heart and a willing spirit. Our journey in life is much more a zigzag than a straight line. I know you know that. There's still a part of me that really likes the straight line, that really likes the idea of getting from point A to point B in the most effective, efficient way, with no detours, with no challenges, with no setbacks along the way. Has anybody else still got a little bit of that in them that they're dealing with? And sometimes now, when the zigzags come, I greet them with good humor and with a, okay, bring it on, welcome. But other times it's like, oh, not again. I don't really, not this, not this. So there's still those times of resisting the zig and resisting the zag. But the difference now is I can catch myself when I do that, and I bet you do the same thing. And I bet you know the tools that you can pull out of your spiritual toolbox to help you be able to make more sense of them. Am I right? Am I right? I want to share with you 4 ideas for navigating life's detours. The very first one is this. It's to embrace change. Embrace change. Say that with me, please. Embrace change. In dealing with life's and meeting life's detours, the very first is embracing change, recognizing that it is inevitable. Nothing is going to stay the same. The good in your life that you have right now is not going to stay the same. It's not always going to be the same good. The bad or the indifferent in your life is not always going to be that particular bad or that particular in the middle. Everything changes. When we can embrace that, then we will find as the changes come that we're not so surprised, we're not so knocked off our feet, we're not so damaged by them. The second is to shift perspective. Shift perspective. Say that with me. Shift perspective. So embrace change, shift perspective. Another way of saying it is reframing it, trying to see the detour as an opportunity for growth. I don't think there is anything I could have chosen in my life that would have given me more opportunities to grow than to go into ministry and to found and attempt to grow a church. I can't think of anything that would have grown me more deeply and broadly than that. It wasn't something that I initially picked for myself, and yet the truth of the matter is it has grown me more than anything I could ever imagine could have grown me in the same way. Shifting our perspective when we're dealing with a detour. And remember, detours are not planned events. We didn't plan the detour. It's just there. When we shift our perspective and attempt to reframe it, seeing it as an opportunity for growth or an opportunity for good, we will meet that detour in a very different way than if we see it as an enemy, if we see it as just a frustrating obstacle that we hadn't planned for. The third is maintaining a positive attitude. Maintaining a positive attitude. Say that with me. Maintaining a positive attitude. My dad used to say of unity, he wasn't so sure he would call it a religion. I agree with him. I don't call it a religion either. He wasn't always sure what to call it, but he agreed with a lot of it. And he would often describe it as an attitude adjustment center. I think he was right. You know, when I reflect on my experiences at Christ Church Unity San Diego, it's now called Unity San Diego, when I attended in the late 70s, I guess it was an attitude adjustment center. No matter how I came in, I always left better than when I came in. I left better, happier, or lighter, or more hopeful, or more, I was able to reframe whatever it was happening, but I always left better. I think we live in a teaching that helps us to maintain a positive mindset. One of my mentors, a religious science minister, Dr. Peggy Bassett, passed many years ago, had developed an amazing work in Huntington Beach. She used to say when she would gather ministers and would talk to us and try to mentor us to help us be as good as she was, would say things like, if you just mindfully prepare and give your talks every single Sunday, you will absolutely grow. You have to. There's no way you can't. If you're trying to think about things that you're going to share with others to help them, you yourself are going to grow. Isn't it true that we often learn when we are teaching? How many of you have ever attended a seminar where one of the things they'll say to you, a personal growth seminar, where they'll say to you, once you leave, try to teach 2 or 3 things from this seminar to somebody when you get home, right? Why do they say that? They say that because it's a way to reinforce it for ourselves. We have in our teaching the atmosphere, the community, the tools to help us maintain a positive frame of mind. And the fourth is to make it a habit to explore new options. Explore new options. Say that with me. Explore new options. I think one of the ways we get old, even before we get old chronologically, is we stop exploring things that are new and different. We stop exploring different thoughts. We stop exploring different genres of music or entertainment, or we get very insular and are just with people that think like us and act like us, and we know we've got a lot of that going on right now in the country. It's why we seem to be so rigidly polarized, right? When we stop exploring new opportunities, I think we begin to stagnate, and when we stagnate, we begin to die. So transformation includes how we meet the detours that we experience along our life's journey. And you may be right now in the midst of a detour, a redirect in your life. Take a look at how you are framing that. Take a look at how you are embracing that. And maybe there's something that you've heard me say today, or something that my words have triggered in your own thinking that will help you be able to meet that detour with greater grace, with greater faith, and with greater good humor. Namaste.